damage by birth or by accident. In summary, rehabilitation is a process of helping individuals achieve the highest level of function, independence, and quality of life possible. Now, rehabilitation does not reverse or undo the damage caused by the disease. If your hand is cut off, your hand is cut off. Although there are something that can be done to give you an artificial hand. The essence is not to, the hand that is cut off so that a kind of miracle will happen. Then the hand will now return in full capacity. What rehabilitation does is, in that bad condition, what can be done so that you can live a better life? So it does not reverse or undo the damage caused by the disease, the malfunction, or trauma, but it helps in restoring individual health to normal life through counseling, training and therapy after exploitation, physical and psychological abuse or imprisonment, addiction or illness. It helps over so that they become better person in the society. Rehabilitation helps people return to daily life and live in a normal or near normal way possible. So there are different types of rehabilitation. We have the physiotherapy, we have a drug rehabilitation, we have a oral facial rehabilitation, we have a prosthetics and orthotics rehabilitation, we have rehabilitation for victims of human trafficking, internally displaced person rehabilitation, such as victims of war. You need to know the difference between internally displaced person and refugees. The crisis going on in Benue State, where some people have been sent away from their ancestral home, where they have lived all their long, they are no longer there, they have been sacked. Those people are internally displaced. They cannot be referred to as refugees. For you to be able to talk about those victims of war, to be refugees, it must cross international boundary. For example, those who are in Nigeria, as a result of war, they now live in Cameroon. They now become refugees in Cameroon because Nigeria is an international community. Cameroon is an international community. So you cannot say that those people are internally displaced. So if there is a crisis in Anambra and Enugu, as a result of that, some people are disposed of where they live. They become internally displaced person. They are not refugees. I hope that point is clear. So when we look at rehabilitation, another concept that is closely related to rehabilitation, or what you will do after rehabilitation, is what is called reintegration. Reintegration is especially good or wonderful for those who have mental challenges. If, for example, somebody has been classified or it is known to a community that that person has a mental health challenge, and that person undergoes some series of rehabilitation, either in a psychiatric hospital, you understand, if the person comes back to the society, there is a way the society looks at that person, and that is where reintegration comes in. The same thing with a rapist in the community who rape people. As a result of that, he or she passed through the normal process of the law court, and the person is convicted and was in prison for like 6 months or whatever terms is the jail term for the individual. If the person comes back to the society, there is a way the society looks at that person. They will be like, this troublemaker has come back again. That is where integration is very important in the life of the client. The same thing with those armed robbers and every other social deviants, those who deviate from the norms and the values of the society, those who are seen as causing problems to the society. Once they have passed through the process of the criminal justice system and have been convicted for over a period of time, while serving that jail, they are also undergoing rehabilitation to be able to correct what has gone wrong. And when these things are happening, the community people are not aware that this person is undergoing such a rehabilitation. That is where integration comes in. so that such a person will be reintegrated, be reabsorbed back to the society without any stigma or discrimination. So we say that reintegration means dignified return of clients to his or her family, community, or common social life. It is an action or process of integrating someone back to the society. Those who need reintegration include victims of human trafficking. There are people who were trafficked from maybe from the village to the urban city. They were being promised that they will be given heaven on earth. They will send them to school, get them a good job. Before you know it, by the time they know what is happening, they are serving in brothel and they are serving men, being used up to 20 or 25 times in a day. So they are victims of human trafficking. They need reintegration. They need to be identified. Who are they? They need to do what is called contact tracing. That word, contact tracing, became very popular during the COVID-19. If somebody gets COVID-19, they will do a contact tracing, trying to find out the person the COVID-19 patient had contact with. So the same thing with victims of human trafficking. Some of them don't even know where they are. So based on information that you receive from them, you can do contact tracing, try to trace them back to where they came from and see how you can reintegrate them back to the society. So other people who need the reintegration include child abuse, children who are abused, domestic violence, those who pass through one domestic violence or the other. There are inmates in correctional centers. I've talked about this one, those who are in conflict with the law, who commit one crime or the other. As a result of that, they are sentenced. They need reintegration. The society needs to have a kind of positive eyes towards them, because if you begin to stigmatize and begin to discriminate against them, you are not making their case better. You can only worsen their situation. Then the mentally discharged ill patients. When somebody has a mental ill problem and the person passes through the psychiatric hospital and they undergo some rehabilitation, there is this Igbo adage, so there is that suspicion among the people that, are you sure that this person is mentally okay? You understand? So it is the duty and responsibility of the social worker to make sure that such people are reintegrated, explaining to the community or the family where they come from that these are the processes that has been followed to be able to make that person well again and be able to build the trust of the people so that they can openly, with open arm, accept such individual. Definitely, being human being, they will be skeptical. The trust may be like 20%. They will be trusting the person. They will also be watching the person. It is a normal thing. There is nothing wrong in that. The essence is that if the person goes haywire, they will know that they have not committed so much resources, or entrusting into the person. So it takes a gradual process. The social work also helps to monitor the process and see how the reintegration is going about. Now, this Somto, you were in the last class, and they talked about different components of rehabilitation. Can you give us some of these components of rehabilitation?
They have medical rehabilitation, educational rehabilitation.
I can see Lamin, can you give us some of these components? Lamin, can you unmute and give us some components you know? Okay, it's like, okay, Somto, let me come back to you again. Like, how many components do you have? Is it 6 or 7?
No, it's only 4.
How many?
4.
4.
Okay.
Can you give me the four?
Medical, educational,
Yeah.
vocational, and social.
Medical,
Educational,
educational,
vocational,
vocational, yes.
and social.
Social. Vocational, is it there?
Yes.
Social is social inclusion. There is education. So,
Yes.
okay. Okay, there is psychosocial. Then there is no physical rehabilitation.
No, no.
Okay. So the physical rehabilitation is the one that is being done by the physiotherapist, which focus on helping a person regain or improve the capacity of their body with physical mobility as the primary goal. It includes the provision of assistive device. That is where the prosthetics and the orthotics comes in, where we have walking aids, wheelchair, along with appropriate therapy, allowing an optimal use. So this physical rehabilitation has to do with assistive device, artificial limb, any other kind of artificial part of the body that is being created to be able to aid people to function very well. So activities aim at maintaining, adjusting, repairing, and renewing the devices as needed is also a critical aspect of physical rehabilitation. So when you talk about maintaining those assistive device, adjusting, repairing them, they are all parts of renewing the device or critical aspects of physical rehabilitation. Okay, in the last class, there are issues. I was talking about rehabilitation processes. Meanwhile, before that, there are issues that are addressed by rehabilitation social workers. So we are going to hold you people accountable to that. When you get your lecture notes, you should be able to, please, if you have your pen, take notes. I'm going to hold you people responsible for issue addressed by rehabilitation social workers. I'm not going to discuss about that in the class. Then I talked about rehabilitation process. I think we talked about in the last class, talked about identification, talked about assessment, we talked about planning, we talked about implementation and the intervention. So the fifth one is evaluation. So for those of you who were not in class, please liaise with all those who were in the class last week to know what identification is, what assessment is, what is planning, what is implementation and intervention. Then we are now talking about evaluation. And we said that evaluation simply means to check if the goal set out in the planning stage is achieved. If you are doing planning as a process of rehabilitation, you have goals that you set out for yourself. What are you trying to achieve? If it is somebody that engages in crime as a result of not having a means of livelihood, your goal in that rehabilitation will be, how can you make the person to have a skill that he can render services to people and the person get paid for that services he or she have rendered. So if the goals are being achieved, then the social worker prepares for the termination of the rehabilitation process. So we are just trying to evaluate, this thing you are doing, starting from identification to assessment to planning to intervention. You have done a whole lot of things by the time you get to the evaluation stage. So we are now saying, are you achieving the goals you have set out to achieve? You gave yourself a goal. If it is the person that you want to engage in occupational rehabilitation with is the person learning the skill. Is he dedicated? If he's supposed to go and learn the skill 5 times in a week, how often does he go? What is the rapport from the person that is training him or her? You understand? The person that cannot move his hand and is going for physiotherapy, how is he, how you are evaluating? What progress has been made? That is basically what evaluation is talking about. So if the goals are being achieved, then the social worker prepares for the termination of the rehabilitation process. However, if the goals are not being achieved, then 2 things are involved. In the first place, it might be that during implementation, the planning was not adequately followed. Some people may plan something, how things will be done. Then when they are now implementing it, they will begin to minus or remove or add something they are not asked to add. So it might be that during the implementation, the planning was not adequately followed. If this happens, what it means is that effort should be made to find out those who derailed and ensure that they do the appropriate thing. If there are people who skip 1 or 2 steps, there are those who overlook what they were supposed to do. They should be made to go back and do that thing they are supposed to do. Secondly, it might be that the assessment is wrong. The second process of rehabilitation is assessment. When you begin to diagnose, have a critical look about the problem. And when you are doing an assessment, you are not only assessing the weakness of the client, you're also assessing the strengths of the client. What is the client bringing to the table to be able to solve his or her problem? So if the assessment is wrong, what it means is that the planning can never address the problem. If you get your assessment wrong, the implication is that whatever thing you are planning can never address the problem because you are planning on the wrong assessed problem. So if the assessment is wrong, there is need for reassessment. So you can now move for evaluation back to assessment, which is the second step or the second process. You're now going back to the assessment stage and then develop another plan, then follow the process through and come back to evaluation. The sixth step is termination. This is where the social worker brings the entire rehabilitation process to an end. Termination, terminate. You end, you bring to an end the rehabilitation process. We terminate after the goals of the rehabilitation have been achieved. If somebody that needs to learn a skill have learned the skill, if we're able to help the person get up what is called startup grant, and the person opens up a workshop, and begins to render services to people, and you go there, you see people, you see what we call customers, clients, making use of the services provided by the person, and they're paying the person. So we now see that the person who was once a criminal now render services to people, in which people now pay them. You understand? So, this person is doing well. By the first week, he was able to make so. Then by the next week, there is a kind of marginal improvement on what has been done. You check it through a period of 2 months, 3 months, and you see that there is a qualitative increment. Things are qualitatively better from where they used to be. You say, yes, this person, you have built the resilience of this individual. This client that has been very vulnerable can now take care of himself or herself. Now begin to think about termination. Now, I need to warn that termination is a very delicate aspect in the rehabilitation process. Consequently, the social worker should prepare the client for time. Anytime you are doing termination, whether you are doing guidance and counseling, whether you are rendering any kind of help or intervention to the client, please always bear in mind that termination can be very, very delicate. This is simply because having enjoyed so much support from the rehabilitation team, some client finds it extremely difficult to let go the relationship. They become used to the social worker, the rehabilitation team, you understand? And the point where social workers meet client, they meet client at the lowest ebb of their life. At that point where they think that the society have rejected them, nobody wants them, the social worker and their team comes in, and we're able to pick the person out of the mud, bait the person, make the person clean, build the resilience of the person becomes a responsible member of the society. The social worker could be seen as a kind of small god that makes things happen. So the client may find it extremely difficult to let go that kind of relationship he has enjoyed with the social worker. That is why we say that termination is very, very delicate. So the social worker have that enormous responsibility to prepare the mind of the client that the relationship will come to an end one day. Whatever thing you are doing with the client, the relationship must come to an end one day. Even death will even point to the fact that definitely a relationship will come to an end one day. So once the goals have been achieved, the social worker's necessary skills and techniques to ensure successful termination of the process is employed. Whichever skills you've learned as a social worker, should be able to put it into the consciousness of the client. This relationship we are enjoying will come to an end. You begin to build the person's mind so that the person will begin to look forward to it. You begin to make termination enticing to the client. Begin to make termination something that the client will cherish at a point where he or she is on her own, where she can take care of their responsibility, where he can take care of whatever challenges that come his or her way, where the coping capacity of the client has been built, the resilience of the client to be able to absorb whatever shock, whatever problem, whatever challenge has been built. Then you terminate. Then the last one is follow-up, or what we call aftercare services. And we refer to this as maintenance. What basically happens here is that the social worker check up on clients to make sure that they did not relapse to their previous condition. We need to get the concept of relapse. If you are treating a patient, let's say of malaria, and the patient has like 6 doses to take, and the person after taking the first or the second one, or even the third one, you understand, feels that he is now getting better. Instead of completing the dose, he now be like, after all, I'm well now. I don't think I need more medication. Then there is what we call relapse. If the person just terminates the treatment at that point, the tendency for the client to go back to the previous situation is there. So that is why we do follow-up, or what is called aftercare service, or what is called maintenance. So under the rehabilitation process, the client are supervised and monitored. Under such condition, it is difficult for them to miss their scheduled session or tasks assigned to them. When you are working with the client, it is time to go for your training. The person goes. You understand? It is time for you to go for physiotherapy, where you do some exercise. The person, the social worker have your schedule. So the social worker is reminding you. The social worker is working with you. Even when you feel reluctant not to go, the social worker will have a way of trying to motivate you and encourage you to go. But what will happen when the services has been terminated? So we're now saying that under the rehabilitation process, the clients are supervised and monitored. So they find it very difficult to skip what they are supposed to do. So it is difficult to miss their scheduled session or tasks assigned to them. If you ask them to do this, you should be able to monitor them to make sure that they perform the tasks that is being assigned them. However, when the relationship is terminated, they may not be keen to hold on tenaciously to those activities and tasks that have improved their condition. They will begin to ask, what is the sense of doing this thing? They were like, is there a social worker to monitor me to know whether I'm going to go do my business, even if it is barbing, if it is welding? Those, we are monitoring. That used to wake up by 6 o'clock. Before you know it, they begin to wake up by 8 o'clock because they begin to feel that they are now the master of their time. So this condition may make them to relapse. I will now say that the social worker can do follow-up by frequent phone calls, can just periodically call people. Where are you? It doesn't seem you are in the workshop. I'm not hearing so noise. They can do unscheduled home visits. You can On your own, you wake up and you go, and perhaps you see the person in a drinking joint very close to where he's working. Meanwhile, clients are there waiting for him to render services to them. So if they have that consciousness that once in a while you barging on them to find out how they are doing, to also put into their consciousness that they are not free with their time. Okay. You continue to do this until such a time that the client resilience has been built to be doing things on their own with little or no supervision. Any questions so far? Any questions so far?
Hello, sir.
So,
Hello?
yeah,
So can you
I can hear
explain
you.
that reintegration? Can you explain it again?
Can I explain what?
Reintegration.
What?
Reintegration.
Reintegration. Okay, want me to explain reintegration more? Okay. So we say that reintegration is a kind of honor returning, dignified return of client to his or her family or community or common social life. For example, somebody that is popularly known as an armed robber in the society was caught by the police, was sent to the court, and the person is sentenced to like 2 years imprisonment. While the person is in prison or in correctional service center, the person is undergoing rehabilitation. You understand? So when that person is undergoing that rehabilitation, they work with a team of rehabilitative team that is working on the person, so that when the person comes out, the person becomes a better person. So there is suspicion among the community people where that person is picked, because when the better person is picked by the police, there is a kind of everybody will have a sigh of relief that the headache of the community is gone. And all of a sudden, 2 years after, the person comes back to the society. You understand? People will be alarmed. What is this person doing in our society? No matter the explanation you are giving, they do find it difficult to understand. This person they thought that they have gotten rid of is now coming back to the society. So we're now saying that the social worker have a responsibility to work with the person while in prison to undergo rehabilitation, make the person learn a skill, all the deviant behavior the person is engaged, so that he or she will be able to drop them. So when you must have monitored that process and discovered that the person has turned a new leaf, the person has become a better individual, you can now talk to the community. You can now work with the community gatekeepers, or what we call community stakeholders, like the town union executive, the elders in the community, women group, the youth group, to tell them, yes, this person has been a criminal living in your community, but during the period of his incarceration, while in correctional center, he has been able to learn this and this, and we have tried to reform the person's behavior. So with that, you should be able to reintegrate for that person to be accepted back to the society. So that is what basically reintegration is talking about. Are we clear on that? Then you can also work for people who are mentally challenged. So somebody is mad. In our local term, the way we talk about them, you understand? You leave the person, take the person to a psychiatric hospital. After staying for like 6 months or like 3 years, the person is rehabilitated. You understand? Those things, those violent acts the person used to engage in, the person has dropped them as a result of treatment he or she received. And I use the Igbo concept that saying, people still have that notion that the person is still mad. Do you understand? So when that person must have passed through rehabilitation and the person has become a better person, the person needs to be reintegrated back to the society, help the person to have a kind of honor come back so that people don't begin to discriminate against him or her. Are we clear on that?
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm saying.
Okay. Any other question? There is no more question. I think it's already 1 o'clock. I don't know what we'll be looking. Okay, we're going to look at different types of disability in the next class. You know, there are some people that say when people are blind, they say it is what their forefathers did, one ancestors that offended, or whatever, whichever way we want to look at it. So we're going to look at the different aspects of disability. Lamin, can you unmute and talk to the class? Yes, I can see your hand up now. Lamin, you have the floor. Can Lamin hear me? I don't know whether you raised your hand and left the class and left the whole thing on. When did this one happen? You can't hear me. When did this one happen? Anyway, so we'll call it a day. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye.